Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the topic formal charge calculation of carbon, nitrogen and oxygen in organic compounds. Calculating formal charges on carbon, nitrogen and oxygen helps us to understand how these atoms bond and stay stable in a molecule. It helps us to predict reactivity and properties of molecules. This is also important to predict how these molecules will interact and behave in a chemical reaction. To calculate formal charge, we will use this formula, which is formal charge is equal to number of valence electrons minus the sum of non-bonded electrons and number of bonds. Before discussing example, let's see how many valence electrons on carbon, nitrogen and oxygen. Carbon is having 4 valence electrons, nitrogen is having 5 valence electrons, and oxygen is having 6 valence electrons. Carbon usually forms 4 bonds in its stable state, which can be 4 single bonds, 1 double and 2 single bonds, 1 triple or 1 single bond. In all these cases, the formal charge we can calculate by adding the values in the formula. For the number of valence electrons on carbon, 0, number of non-bonded electrons, 4, the number of bonds, and the formal charge on the carbon is 0. Carbon also exists as ions. On this carbon, there are 3 bonds and 2 non-bonding electrons. If we calculate the formal charge, then 4 number of valence electrons, 2 non-bonded electrons, 3 number of bonds, so the formal charge is -1. Carbon with the -1 formal charge are known as carbanions. On this carbon, we have 3 bonds, 4 number of valence electrons on carbon atom, 0 non-bonded electrons, 3 number of bonds, so the formal charge is +1. Carbon with +1 formal charge are known as carbocations. Similarly, we can calculate the formal charge on nitrogen. These are the 3 forms of nitrogen. Those are very common in organic molecules. Nitrogen is having here 3 bonds and 2 non-bonding electrons. So 5 number of valence electron, 2 non-bonded electrons, 3 bonds, so the formal charge is 0. On this nitrogen, there are 4 single bonds. 5, the number of valence electrons, 0 non-bonding electrons, and 4 are the bonds, so the formal charge is +1. In this case, nitrogen is having 4 non-bonded electrons and 2 single bonds. So if we put these values in the formula with 5 valence electron, 4 non-bonded electrons, 2 number of bonds, so the formal charge is -1. And this nitrogen is having the formal charge +1. We can also calculate the formal charge on the oxygen. Oxygen is having 6 valence electron and this oxygen is having 4 non-bonded electrons. So with 6 valence electron, 4 non-bonded electrons and 2 bonds, oxygen is having formal charge 0. 5 valence electrons, 2 non-bonding electrons and 3 bonds, the formal charge is +1. 6 valence electrons, 6 non-bonding electrons as you can see here, and 1 bond, so the formal charge is -1. Now that you know how to calculate formal charges on carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, let's apply these concepts by assigning formal charges to these atoms in few organic molecules. In this example, carbon with 4 bonds will have 0 formal charge. Nitrogen with 4 bonds will have +1 formal charge. Nitrogen with 2 bonds and 4 non-bonding electrons will have formal charge -1. In this example, carbon with 4 bonds, formal charge 0, nitrogen with 4 bonds, formal charge +1, oxygen with 2 bonds and 4 non-bonding electrons, the formal charge is 0, oxygen with 6 non-bonding electrons and 1 bond, the formal charge will be -1. In this example, carbon with 4 bonds, the formal charge will be 0. Carbon with 3 bonds and 2 non-bonding electrons, the formal charge will be -1. I hope you find this information useful to calculate formal charges on carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen atoms in organic molecule. If you have any questions or need further clarification, please feel free to ask. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more organic chemistry insight. Thank you.